Welcome to the Athletes Ocean podcast. We're here with Nick Lee, two-time national champion, U.S. Open champion most recently. He also has an instructional on our platform, Dominating on Top, so make sure to go and check that out. And what's up, Nick?
Not much, man.
All right, I just want to have a nice podcast, all right? I don't want to get canceled. I don't want to get, everyone up in arms because you can be difficult sometimes.
Is that even possible these days to not get canceled?
No, but it's good to see you. Fresh off of a U.S. Open title.
Yes.
Talk me through the tournament.
Yeah, well, it's a 2-day tournament, and then so there's only one, or I guess medal matches on the second day. So U.S. Open's crazy because I'm pretty sure anybody can register. And it's so you get like my first 3 matches were guys I've never heard of. 2 or 3 matches of guys I've never heard of. Sometimes I forget those matches, to be honest, just because it's like so many. But they're usually tough guys, and then kind of in the later parts of the first day, you start to wrestle guys. Wrestled some guys I've wrestled before. Bo Bartlett, obviously from NLWC, and then second day finals, tough match, but you don't get to compete very often after college, so it's always fun to get out there. Sometimes it takes a few matches to get into it since you're not competing every week, but it's fun.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about the differences between college wrestling and now I guess you call it pro wrestling, right? You said that you don't think about the competitions quite as much because they're not as like consistent. They're much more spread out.
Yeah, it's interesting. In college, you're kind of like you have class, and then each week you have like whatever your sporting event is. If you're a wrestler or if you're a track runner or whatever, like that's what you're waiting on. So that's all you think about. So then whenever you're not in school and you're competing, very rarely it's like there's so many other things to think about. And it's just like it's very far between. I kind of find it refreshing because then I don't have to think about just my sport and school over and over again every day.
What do you think about? Like, you've got a lot of other things going on. You're wearing a sweatshirt right now.
That's
You're
right.
wearing a hat. You're decked out actually head to toe.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about that because I know that's been a big thing on your day-to-day and a big thing you've been working on recently.
Yeah. So I started a company called Wakia. It's an apparel brand or apparel company, I guess. And it's essentially fitness, athletic, athleisure apparel. And it's all stuff that I wear that I like to wear. I started it I started working on it in 2022 knowing absolutely nothing about apparel, fashion, like anything. And I learned a lot as I went through. So it's been a really fun project for me, and we've gotten a lot of support, like a really good response. And it's just whenever you go into business, things that you're not familiar with, there's always these little like obstacles, and it's like little obstacles. They're not necessarily big obstacles. For some things, there's big obstacles, but for the little obstacles, it's like, well, I don't really know much about this. I don't know how to overcome this, and so you just kind of sometimes the difference between doing something and not doing something is just like a few hours or a few days of like surfing on the internet, like looking for or calling up somebody that has done it before and like figuring out how to, either go around or get through these little tiny obstacles. And so I did that because I wanted to do something, and it's been really fun. I mostly did it, obviously I wanted to put stuff out there that people can enjoy, put out quality products, which I do, and sharing a positive message. But then also I did it just because I kind of wanted to, and I think it would be really cool, and it's been really cool.
I love that. I think that when you're your own business owner and you're starting your own thing, right, and it's very unique. So like a lot of the problems that you come up with, they're unique problems, right?
Yeah.
So you can get somebody in your industry who's had like similar things and worked through those.
Yeah.
But to your situation, they're very unique, right? And what happens is, like you touched on it, you go on YouTube and you become your own problem solver, because no one really knows better than you. And so you start to, once you get more experience, you start to trust your own opinion on things.
Yeah.
And you probably hit a point where you're like, no, I know that like this person's going to give me this advice, but what's best for my business is something that only I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mix of both things. Like I know now knowing what I know now,
Mm-hmm.
like I definitely would have done some things differently, but I didn't know it at the time, so I made the right decisions like
Right.
at the time. But like if I could start over, like it's like an exciting thought because I might start more businesses in the future, and that could be really cool because I have experience now, and then maybe after that I start another business and I have even more experience. So it's kind of exciting, like knowing what you know. And definitely what you say, like a lot of people will give you, certain things. Oh, you have to do this because this worked with what I did. And that's not necessarily true because everyone's circumstances are different. And, the factors are your personality, I think, is a big one, especially with social media and stuff. Like, and then, where you are financially as well. Everyone doesn't have the same, financial resources, just everything. So everything goes into your business because your business, and this, is very much an extension of yourself. Like it is a representation of yourself. But then, at the same time, just like sports or anything like that, there's experts and, you'd be stupid not to like listen to people's advice and try to apply it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And so do you see yourself as a business owner long term? Or we're not going to see the Lee and Lee law firm?
Well, you never really know. I've always wanted to go to graduate school. And my dad's an attorney, and so I've always been interested in that. I have an interest in, everything that kind of comes out of going to graduate school, whether it's a business or law degree. I'm interested in the world and all of that stuff. So it's definitely something that I would like to do in the future. And how that would balance with running businesses and stuff, I guess we'll see. I don't think there's any like, oh, you have to do it this way and you can't do it this way, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to kind of do it the way I feel I want to do. And, if it means I have to, stop my involvement in business for a little while, that's fine, but maybe it doesn't. So I think I'll just kind of see how it goes. I'm a big believer in kind of you can kind of write your own story and you can really manage whatever you want to take on. And also, I'm a believer in going and making mistakes and learning from them. So I think we'll kind of see where the future goes.
Yeah, I like that. I say something a lot. It was like, if I didn't start my company in college, I don't know if I would have started my company.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity of like, oh, I can go and make these mistakes and live off of nothing, right?
Yeah.
There's only very specific points in your life where you're able to do that. You are now training full time at the NLWC, and I know that that's a big time commitment. Don't get me wrong, right?
Energy.
And energy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are left with sections throughout the day that are yours, right? And obviously, you have outside training, recovery, and stuff like that. But you also have a great opportunity to make all these mistakes when you're not having a family relying on you, your income relying on you, just the business, right? So you can go all in on making the mistakes and basically giving yourself an education on being your own business owner while training for the Olympics, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you can manage whatever you want to take on, and like sometimes the name of the game is to like go make mistakes. I think a lot of people think, well, if I start this, foray into business or something else, it's like I have to do everything exactly right, blah, blah, blah. And that's just not true. Like whenever you go and start something, like the idea is to go and learn by making mistakes and, like you said, receive an education and a self-education of sorts.
It's like a degree.
And I would argue that it's better than many degrees.
It's better than most, yes.
Most degrees, especially these days. So, and like I said, it just, people that want to do that, maybe the business isn't even something that you're necessarily passionate about. Maybe you're passionate about just like figuring out how to do, like run a business or, whatever it is. And these days with the internet and stuff, the limit is your own imagination with what you could do. So,
right.
It's an interesting world we live in. So, and I would also kind of use this opportunity to say, go and support, small online businesses and stuff like that, because, who knows what kind of products we miss out on, from small businesses that, people we know or even people we don't know start because, we just want to keep shopping big brands, which there's nothing wrong with shopping big brands. They're always going to offer decent stuff. But I think it's important to support small businesses, people that because you know that they share your values and they're part of your community and stuff. So
yeah, we're in the same situation right now with Ocean.
Uh-huh.
We're the new kids on the block, and
yeah,
we have a great product that comes from great wrestlers like yourself.
Yeah.
On our platform, and right now, like, the name of the game is getting the word out and showing people, what we do and what the value is for them.
Yeah.
But also, we're in an undefined phase where we can also spread to people's needs, right?
Yes.
We're young, we're flexible, we're small, but we're really good at what we do.
Yeah.
So we can, they're like, oh, you want to see more of that? We can do that. We can accommodate that.
Yes.
Right? And so it's a really cool place to be in, because we get to fill those needs and capitalize on, a pain point that our customers have.
Yeah. The thing that's cool for me about Ocean is, like, people have been selling technique DVDs forever. And, like, Google could easily go and, like, start selling technique. But, like, Ocean is run by people that, like, know the sport and, like, know the needs of the people that they're selling to. And so that's something that I like about it. Like, if I want to go buy technique, I'm going to buy it from Ocean, because I know the people that are involved in it, and they're the people that have had at one point the same goals as I do. And I would be thinking that if I was a young wrestler or coach, that's what I would be thinking whenever I go, looking for that kind of thing. So
yeah, well, we appreciate that, and like I said, we appreciate you having you on the platform.
Absolutely.
Your first technique video, I know you want to do another one with us.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. You were obviously a threat anytime you got on top in college, and an absolute menace in folk style. So talk about that.
Sure. Well, that wasn't always the truth. Coming out of high school, I sucked at top bottom wrestling. I was so bad. And in Indiana,
Really?
Yeah, I was terrible.
I find that hard to believe.
No, I was really, really bad. Indiana doesn't. I don't know if it's maybe a lack of focus or a lack of depth, but top bottom wrestling is kind of something that I think the Midwest in general lags behind on. And you look at these guys from the East Coast, Pennsylvania, like, they're in college and they're already turning guys up. And so it's really something that I had to develop. And so I worked really hard at it. It was like one of my main focus points whenever I got into college, was my top bottom wrestling. So I got into college, and it's like every single day I was just like, Coach Kale would just say, all right, go down. We're going to go until you get like 5 escapes every single day. And it was rough because, like, he's really big, so it was hard to get out. But I ended up getting a lot better, obviously. Just like anything, if you put in the work, you get better at it. And so, by the end of college, I was one of the best guys at riding. I got some turns towards the end of college, but as far as just like riding and getting riding time, like, I was definitely one of the best guys in the country. And I think top bottom wrestling is like a chess match. Like, people think it's just strength. It's not. It is like a chess match, and it's really, there's a lot of nuances and technique in there, and I think it's really cool. Like, it's a really good, interesting part of, like, collegiate folk style wrestling. So don't get rid of it, anybody that's watching. So
No, we can't go to freestyle.
No, that's dumb.
No, that's stupid.
Sorry.
No, there's a funny scene actually in the doc where you're like talking to Max Dean about how you definitely lead the team in riding time, and you're like, listen, last year I went into the second period with 3 minutes and 15 seconds of riding time.
That's true. That happened at Nationals. It was a mistake on the clock, but I went into the second period with over 3 minutes of riding time.
Never been done before.
First person ever.
Yeah. No, that was hilarious. But talking about that season, your senior year of college, what's your favorite memory from that season?
I think one of the things that I always think about is we went 4 for 4 the year before in the finals. We had 4 national champions. We got second as a team, which, like, you can't walk away being the team that we are. You can come away with winning 4 out of 4 guys in national championships and still feeling like you didn't get the job done. Coming away as national runner-ups as a team. So I think one of the things that we focused a lot on, and we put in a lot of work, and there's a lot of kind of, back and forth, is kind of building a team environment in which we're going to make sure that we win the national championship next year as a team. And a lot of people will say, well, you know, you had all the talent and, you know, it was going to happen no matter what. And that's just not true. I mean, we did a lot of work to put together a team that was going to, you know, get it done that year. And I was on some early teams with so many good guys. I mean, my freshman year, the team I was on was like Vincenzo Joseph, Mark Hall, Jason Knopf, Zane Rutherford, Bo Nickel, Anthony, like just like a crazy lineup. And we were pretty used to winning. Like it wasn't really if we lost, that would have been really, really upsetting to everyone. Like it just wasn't gonna happen. Like it wasn't gonna happen. And so then we had COVID, and we kind of had a lot of guys leave, and it was kind of a different mindset where it's not like we're not gonna lose. It was like, well, we gotta, you know, try to win and stuff like that. And so getting back to the point where it's just like, hey, like we're here to win, no questions asked, was kind of a big thing that we focused on, and we got there.
Yeah. It was like a new era, new next generation, right?
Yeah.
And you were the bridge between the two, because in the last one you were the new kid on the block, and in this one you were kind of grandpa.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I would say a bridge between is definitely a good way to put it. So
yeah, and so going back to freshman year, the year that you guys beat Ohio State,
yeah,
you lose
first round.
Ryan Deal, right?
Yes, it was wild. That was a wild year. Yeah, I mean, so they say, I remember the talk before this national championships. It was like, Ohio State has the best team that's ever been put together. That was the talk. And we're all sitting there, like, in our room every day, and, like, we didn't really pay attention to it that much, but, like, the talk had kind of get there. I'm just like, what are they talking about? Like, have they seen our team? Like, what's going on? And so we ended up winning the national championships. And I remember the article that came out. It was like the best team to ever be runner-ups. And I was like, what?
It's like, you guys are missing the point.
Like, you're missing the point here. But anyway, it was, yeah. So I was young on the team, and I was like, I've always been someone who I really want the team to win, even more than I want myself to win. Like, I always want the team to win. So I lose first round, and I was just like, dang, this is going to be rough, but I got to wrestle back because I do not want to be the reason we lose this thing. So we go back, and I look at, like, the backside of the bracket, see who I have, and I have this guy named Josh Albert, and we had wrestled earlier in the year, and he was really tough, and he got upset the first round too. So I was like, all right, this is about to be a battle. So it's a battle. I think it was like a 1 or 2 point match, and then I proceeded to have, like, I had 8 matches. I lost 2. So I had like 6 wins that were all like 1 or 2 point matches. One of them was OT, and it was just like I've
gutting them out. Never
been sore in my life, but the experience from that was like so important for like the rest of my career. So that was a wild tournament. I wouldn't trade that forever. That's like a core experience, core memory for me. It was my freshman year national tournament.
Yeah. So I can tell too the way you talk about it, and you've talked about it multiple times in front of the team and stuff like that. That's kind of like when you ushered in college Nickley that was
well, it wasn't just I had my own personal experience in that tournament where I was like obviously grinding back on the backside. There's a lot of guys in that tournament all on our team that they all had their own like every single guy was like, I have a role to play here. I got to score as many points as possible, and we're going to win this thing. Yeah. And so I think it was just, that's one of the best teams I think ever put together. Maybe not in wrestling, but just in sports. And I'm not talking about in terms of success. I'm just talking about in terms of competitiveness, personality, problem solving, all that stuff. I think people should go back and study it, and then they can give me some royalties and stuff when they make a book. But
yeah, when they make a book.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would agree. I think everybody that watched that in the wrestling world, they had to know that they were witnessing history.
Yeah, and every dude that was a wrestler is going to go back and say this about his team. So I understand. But
no, but seriously,
yeah.
I mean, I feel the same way. I think that. And now you get to see all of those guys are having success, in the wrestling world on the international stage, but also MMA.
Yeah.
Bo and Tony are now going into MMA.
That's
Does that
right.
interest you at all?
MMA?
Yeah.
I don't know. Are they gonna make me an offer?
That's not how it works.
I it's interesting to me. I've worked with MMA guys before, like with the wrestling and stuff. I think it's interesting. I don't know if it's something that I would do. I don't have like a huge desire to do that as like my career or anything, but it's definitely interesting. I think it's a really cool sport. So, as of right now, it's not really something I want to do for my career, but I'll I'll entertain Bo and those guys and maybe come in every once in a while. So.
I've been trying to get Nick to come to jiu-jitsu for a long time, and he's just, after this tournament, when the planets align.
Yeah, when the planets align, I'll make it out to the 20-minute drive it takes to get out there. But I've like rolled a little jiu-jitsu in the wrestling room, and our guys are pretty good.
They are.
So
they know what they're doing.
But I did a little. What's the choke where you throw your? It's a triangle choke, but with your legs.
Well, all triangle chokes are with your legs.
Whatever. I did that to someone the other day, and they're surprised. So I know more than I let on.
Well, that's good stuff.
I don't know the names for it.
That's definitely not like a wrestler thing. Like if you would hit an arm triangle or a darce, I would have been like, okay, that's a wrestler thing.
That was like I walk into practice and everyone's practicing jiu-jitsu and boxing these days, so it's like impossible. It's impossible to be in the Penn State wrestling room and not like know a little bit about some of the stuff. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I like the step that it's taken.
Yeah.
Everyone's always shadow boxing each other and just like randomly, are they wrestling? Oh no, they're doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so we're not a wrestling team anymore apparently. So.
Just a training center.
We're a training center.
Yeah. So I mean, now you are full-time NLWC. What's the biggest difference you'd say?
Biggest difference. Well, obviously the first one would be that we're not training folk style, we're training freestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also you have a lot more autonomy in your training to kind of determine, what's best for you. In college, I'm very much like, I wouldn't say that I was in particular like high maintenance, but it's like the stakes feel a little higher. So it's like I want to make sure I'm doing what my coaches tell me. Right. And so it's kind of like, an everyday thing, making sure that everything is, locked in and the boxes are checked. Versus in OWC, it's more kind of, you're still training hard, but it's more like, well, I can kind of determine what I need, 1 week. And I have my coaches there, obviously, to help me out, but it's definitely a lot more down to your self-determination. So,
yeah, absolutely. And so your next competition is Final X.
That's right.
You got a familiar opponent, Yanni.
Well, yeah, I guess familiar. We wrestled a couple times. I forget we wrestled in college once too.
Did you really?
So, yeah, we wrestled. It was before my red shirt got pulled. Actually, I don't know. He was maybe redshirting at the time too. It was at the Binghamton Open or something.
Really?
So yeah.
How did that go?
He beat me. I don't remember the score, to be honest, but I remember we were both really tired afterwards.
So you guys are 1-1.
Yeah, I guess we're 1-1.
Nice. And you excited for the match? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Ready to rock?
Final X is gonna be sweet. I've never wrestled in Final X before. I think it's kind of a cliche name, but we'll roll with it.
Yeah. One thing that, I think you were talking about being top-bottom wrestler.
Yeah.
One thing that I think takes a while to adjust for guys, but you've been at freestyle for a while, full-time, is just the little reactions of hitting things in transition.
Yeah.
I hit this double leg, I fall right into my leg lace. Right?
Yeah.
Just like you would hit a double leg right into cross wrist tilt, right? How has that adjustment been, and how has that process been? Do you feel like you're fully adjusted, or do you still feel like you're kicking freestyle off a little bit?
I think it's just the nuances of anything that you do. For wrestling is always going to be wrestling, but then, for any style you have, there's going to be, little nuances, little ways you shift your weight to make sure that you're not giving up certain points. And I think that's just comes with experience. So I'm definitely picking up on some of the stuff. I definitely need a lot more experience to pick up on some of this stuff, but it's just the game. It's like playing a video game. You know what I mean? Like you could know everyone knows in certain video games like what each button does on the controller, right? Sometimes it's just like, you know, a half second or something whenever you press that button. You know, there's nuances, and the better you get, the more nuances you get. So it's I think of it kind of like a video game in that sense. If you want to get better, you just got to do it. So.
And you got to do it. Would you say drilling is the best way to get there? Experience, time on the mat?
I think it depends for every person. Some people are going to get more from drilling. Obviously, there's no replacement for competition as experience. That's just
right.
There's no replacement for that. And then just wrestling tough guys that have that kind of feel and stuff, so you can pick it up. You can watch film, all that kind of stuff. You know, it's there's any number of ways you can get better at some of that stuff. But I've always said that I don't think there's any replacement for real competition, especially whenever you get to like higher levels.
Yeah, I think it's a very honest test of an assessment of where you're at.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of people will make a big deal out of being perfectly prepared for every competition.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the ones where you're just, you know, strap on your shoes and we'll see how this goes.
That gets on my nerves. Like, you're never going to be perfectly prepared for anything in life. And so, like, first of all, wrestling is a sport. It's not your make or break, like, thing. Like, it's not, like, life or death. So, obviously, you want to be prepared as best you can. But I think people deal in absolutes sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're going to do the best we can, but you just got to be able to roll with the punches sometimes. So you're never going to be perfectly prepared for anything in life, and so you shouldn't expect to be perfectly prepared for a sport.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about this before, but that's the same with your business, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to make it sound like you're like, oh, you know, I'm out here making all these mistakes. Like, you're doing a lot of great stuff, right? And it's just, like you said, the process is never going to be perfect.
No.
Yeah. And as much as your business is an extension of your personality, your wrestling is also an extension of your personality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the little nuances you pick up and the little things that you do in your wrestling. I mean, that's right. That's why I think you're a fan favorite and everybody enjoys watching you compete is because of your personality.
Well, I hope so. I have a great personality.
A lot of crackhead energy.
No, we're not going to go with that. That's
Nick
my
kind of prompt today on his Instagram.
Yeah.
If it's not crackhead energy, you don't want it, right?
There's just like, people will say like, oh, I have crackhead energy. And to me, that just means you might be annoying. And I know that's a little harsh, but that's the takeaway.
It's true, honestly.
I'm sorry. I don't even think that's that hot of a take.
No, it's pretty accurate.
Like, what do you think whenever you think of a crackhead? Not someone who's like fun to be around. Just saying.
The armless dude that was harassing Dave Portnoy is the first thing that comes to my mind.
I haven't seen that, but now I'm gonna look it up. So.
Oh, it's funny. You should see it. It's a funny clip. So you were doing a podcast for a little bit. Are we gonna get
for a little bit? Yeah. Let's say one episode.
Was it Babblin' with Nick Lee?
Spitballing. We were spitballing it. Yeah.
Spitballing.
The whole concept was I'm just gonna go on, no prep, and just talk about whatever pops in my head. And I think the first episode went pretty well.
I was a fan.
I wanted to have like a couple people on at a time. It just like anything in life, it was a lot of work, and it wasn't stuff. Well, it wasn't a lot of work because my first episode, I just woke up one morning, turned on my computer, got GarageBand, and just started recording myself talking.
That's how it starts, man.
Yeah, and so I could have kept doing it. Maybe I'll continue at some point. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're great on the mic. I think you have interesting and fun things to say. I would be a listener for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. I like, my personality isn't so much. I'm getting better at it because you kind of have to with the things that I'm involved with, like putting myself out there kind of. I've never been a person that's like, I want to put myself out there. Like,
right.
I would prefer, if I could, to just like never show a picture or a video of myself talking, but that's not very realistic. So I'm getting better at like putting myself out there, and people say I have fun ideas. I think I have ideas that I definitely want to share, and we're in a world now where like, if you have good ideas, man, you gotta share your ideas because sometimes people need to hear them. So
yeah, I think the best ideas need to win out, and they need a platform to be heard
like
on.
It's just the basic, like whether it's something about a sport or maybe something about business or something about like morality or politics, like stand up for what you believe in. Maybe you're wrong. Go test it out. We'll see.
Yeah, and something you said about the business like requires that the
Yeah.
business needs a face, and something you said before, like, it's an extension of your personality, and you've got different strengths, so you want to like lean into those strengths. You want to also cover your weaknesses, because right now you have to do everything. So eventually, you want to hire your weaknesses and lean into your strengths and do the 5% that only you can do.
Yeah.
Right? That's long term. But at the beginning, when you're the one man show, you have to do everything. It's kind of hard to do that. You have to like, all right, let me get less bad at my weaknesses and let me get a little bit better at my strengths.
Correct.
That's the name of the game.
I personally, I like doing everything because I like being in charge, and so I've always had trouble with delegating.
Yeah.
But as they say, leadership is delegation. So
yeah, that's a great saying.
Yeah, that's a saying that I've tried to live by. But I guess everything depends. Like, if I want to grow beyond what I'm doing, I'm definitely gonna have to hire out at some point.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I'm good where I am. We'll see how things go. So
anytime Mark or Coach Cody grab my camera and they go and film stuff, it's like leadership is delegation.
Leadership is delegation. That just takes that means you don't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I grabbed your camera and filmed stuff one time.
Leadership is delegation.
Yeah, that better make it into the documentary. Whatever.
We'll see. There's that is a whole process. It's a very fun process, but it's a very long
We've been waiting for a while.
You're gonna be waiting for a little bit longer.
Dang it,
dude!
I'm so excited to see it.
I'll show you the trailer after this, but
Let's go.
Even the trailer has taken like almost a month and a half now.
Trailer's the most important part, though.
It is very important.
Yeah,
because that's gonna, make or break, funding for it and stuff like that, and like the platform. People are gonna be like, do we want to see more of this, right? So I can get as many scenes done as possible, but there's even things like, okay, we're gonna score a lot of the documentary, so that means we're gonna custom make songs for it.
Let's go.
So, well, potentially, but that's
who's the big guy? John Williams, is that the guy?
What?
Who's the big guy that does the scores?
Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer. No, there's another guy that did the scores for Star Wars.
John Williams. Yeah.
John Williams. That's
John
the
Williams.
man. Yeah, he's who you should get.
Oh yeah, let me get right on that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's really budget effective. He's super cheap.
Pays for itself at the end of the day.
Well, if everything sounds like Star Wars, that'd be pretty sick.
Whenever you're making art, is it really about making money? Because I think that's an issue. I think you should just make cool stuff.
I think it's definitely both. Like
It's both.
But okay, so here's the way I look at it, and I do like to see myself as an artist, because I think you're either like a technician, an entrepreneur, or a manager. I'm definitely not a manager, and a learned entrepreneur, but I'm definitely
these are your technical jargon things. This is a fancy way of saying you can't be good at everything.
But this is from a book called The E-Myth, where I've recommended you read this book.
I have read the cliff notes. I haven't read the actual book yet. But yes, I took your advice.
So this is the main idea of the book is work on your business, not in your business.
Yes.
Right? Which as a sole business owner, you have to, right? You have to do both right now. But you have one of 3 personalities, and you have to kind of be all 3 when you don't have anybody else. But you're either naturally a technician, an entrepreneur, or a manager, right? Certain people are managers, and they're like really good at managing people. Oh, he would be best at this. Clear, effective communication between the parties, right? Manager, okay? Entrepreneur has like a billion ideas.
Yes.
And they're running 1,000,000 miles an hour in whichever their idea takes them.
Okay.
And they're the ones that really can create the company, but then they get to a certain point where it's not really as effective for them to run the company unless they change their natural, practices. So we see this. I
remember this.
You see this like naturally with Steve Jobs, for instance, is like had a vision of exactly what it was supposed to be. He was really hard to work with. A lot of people have like horror stories of him.
That's what I've heard as well.
But then he left because they were like, hey, like effectively, like you can't run this company and be the way you are, right? But then he's like, I'm the lifeblood behind.
What does that company even do now? Like
communism. And now he has to come back later on, right? And when he comes back the second time, I don't know, obviously, but I believe he was probably more of a manager and technician and a little bit less on the entrepreneurial side, just because he couldn't effectively run the company and be that way.
You sent me all this stuff, and do you remember what my response was?
No.
I'm the rare 1%. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I'm not. I'm really bad at a lot of things. But you're getting off subject.
So the third topic, I just want to finish this and we'll go back to
Yes.
Hollywood. So the third personality is technician, which is what I am.
Yes.
Which is like, hey, I know how to do this thing. I'm like an artist and the product is what's most important, right? So I dive into, if it looks great, everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah.
If it like is the best thing and everyone wants to watch it, then everything else will take care of itself. What really happens is the people that occupy these other two personalities will get involved and they'll help push it to the finish line.
Yes.
So that's really where I try to focus on my energy and do kind of like we talked about before, the 5% that only I can do.
And I can confirm that you're a technician.
Yeah,
I can confirm that in your personality. But
okay.
yeah. Well, anyway, back on the real subject, the music of
The music
of
the
documentaries / movies. I'm just telling you, that kind of stuff, as a amateur movie critic, which I should be a professional movie critic because professional movie critics suck. I've never seen a good movie critique online. Like I don't think I've seen
for
one.
like the wrong reasons.
That's what I'm saying. Who's paying them off? I don't know. And also, did they even watch the movie? Like, give me a little more in depth. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think if you look at my Twitter and look at some of my past movie critiques, I think I go in depth. I break it down. There's acting. There's score. There's the story development. Right? It's all very important to tell a good story. But anyway, the score is really important. One of my favorite movies of all time, maybe my favorite, is Disney's original animated Mulan. And one thing that people remember from that is a really original score, right? There's really original music that adds flavor. And then obviously John Williams and Star Wars Episode 3. Greatest fight scene ever filmed. I can't think of even
Iconic.
a close second is Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader, formerly Anakin Skywalker, right? That is like the music and the setting. I think that's maybe the best fight scene that will ever be filmed. I don't think that you can match it.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. Music, very important.
Were you low-key rooting for Anakin?
You know, we can talk about the politics of the Galactic Empire another time.
Because I just know the best part of Star Wars for me was that little window when he was still like looked like Anakin,
Yeah.
but he was Darth Vader.
You could see it in his eyes, though.
Yeah.
They changed his eyes a little bit.
A little bit.
Right?
Color
And
contacts.
you kind of notice that. It's a tragic story, but I'll just tell you, yeah. It's
Personality went way different.
Personality, way different, but he made some good points, you know,
did.
about the politics.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they had the greatest political class in the Galactic Empire, to be honest.
And what do you think was the problem?
Well, look, you're going to war with a bunch of capitalists, first of all, right? They're just trying. Now, they did some bad things on the one planet, Naboo, right? They did some bad things, obviously. But you don't even have a military, first of all, so that's one issue.
Yes.
But then you swing completely in the other direction and you make this military that's way too strong, and then you cede full control over it to your executive officer, aka the president or the chancellor, and so you're just giving away control of the government. So they did it to themselves, to be honest. I mean, they kind of created the political environment in which a despot would take over, right? And it just so happened that it was a Sith Lord, which is worst possible scenario, honestly.
Yeah, it makes sense. Also, when you first look at it, it's like, okay, it was for the Republic. Who's this army for? It's for the Republic. And in a perfect world, it's like the Jedi are trusted with that, right? But
Yes.
the Jedi don't want that power because it doesn't really fit with their code. But their code is kind of like the only people that would operate it morally.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. But if you think about it, you know, so what was the chosen one, Anakin Skywalker? What was he supposed to do? He's supposed to bring balance to the Force. And with the Republic and the clone army, the balance was way too far on the light side of the Force. So he did bring balance. The pendulum went in one direction, and then it went in the other direction. And then who ultimately killed the Emperor Palpatine, a.k.a. Darth Sidious? It was Anakin Skywalker. So he ended up killing him at the end, and so he did bring balance to the Force. Now, all this new stuff, Episode 7, 8, and 9,
It was just ruin the whole thing.
scratch it from my mind.
Forget
I
that
wish
it happened.
I almost wanted to poke out my own eyes, but they did it a little bit better. But
Well, they had to so you know what happened, right? They changed directors for the last one, so they had to like backpedal a lot of the things, and they just bring Palpatine back to life.
Yeah.
The first one was
Jimmy.
How did we get to this part of the podcast?
This is the best part of the podcast.
Yeah. Listen, in the first episode 7, I knew the rest of them were going to be bad because here's what they did. And anyone that watched it, they tried to take every memorable part from the 6 episodes previous and try to put it into one movie. And it was just garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was. And
if you disagree, you're wrong.
You are wrong. I think they should scratch the last 3. Like the last 3 were just terrible because they just opened up all these plot lines where you're like, oh, this is how it's going to fit. And then they're like, oh, actually, fan theories, you're all wrong. We're not going to do any of that. And we're just going to leave unanswered questions. And everyone's going to hate it.
Yeah, and I don't understand. You didn't bring... So at the end, Rey ends up being a Palpatine, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to get him out of my head.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be reminded of him.
There was no... It was really... one of my issues with Hollywood these days is it's a couple things. One, we want to inject PC culture into it. It's not fun.
No.
It's not fun. The whole point of, if you're doing a period piece or if you're doing, anything that is going to, whenever you create art, you want to evoke some sort of emotion. And so whenever you're going out to not offend people, then you're not evoking emotion, which means you're not making art.
You're just lecturing people.
Or maybe you're not lecturing people. Maybe you're just tiptoeing around certain things, and it's like, hey, you're supposed to make people angry or sad. That's the point of making art, is to make people feel things. And then whenever they write characters now, the character arcs are really bad. They're either going for, we're going to try to make it as shocking as possible, which that's not good because Rey being a Palpatine in Star Wars, no one saw that coming, but also no one wanted to see that. No one wanted it to be that way. Let's have her be something else. Maybe she's, I don't know. We're going to forget about it. But make it something that's satisfying, that respects, the past story, that kind of thing. There's a lot of things wrong. We could go very deep into the issues with Hollywood, but there's very few. Let's not. I will say, if I had to recommend a movie that I think is made recently that I thought was really, really good, and this was recommended to me by Mark McKnight, is Waiting for the Barbarians. It's with Johnny Depp, and I thought it was a really, really good movie, and I think people should go watch it for kind of an example in the modern day of what good art can be. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing for me being on a movie creator or video producer, whatever you want to call it, I know that narrative stuff where it's this is a script, these people are fake, but we're going to use actors and we're just going to make it seem like reality. Yeah. That's not my thing. I want to take reality and add enough flair and interest to where people are like, oh, I get this person now.
Yes, exactly.
This is a real person in front of me, and I understand them. And I think, one, with YouTube, but also just with the rise of more documentaries looking like movies, looking more like cinematic masterpieces, that is what people want to see. The McGregor documentary came out yesterday. I'm so excited to watch it.
Who's that? I'm just kidding.
But I mean, actual reality that is interesting. I think that's what gets me excited, and I think that's what a lot of people want to see. They don't want to see this fake thing. They want to see. I want to see reality told in a really captivating, interesting way.
Yes.
And I want to get to know these characters.
There's no stories, and there's no experience like the things that happen in real life. No, there's never been a fake story told that's not inspired by real life events, and that's what's so cool about storytelling and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's Shakespeare's written every story that will be told, every effective story, I guess, and then also, it's kind of like your dreams. You can't make up faces. You can't make up thoughts. It's a regurgitation of experiences that have happened.
Now, there are a lot of people that are going to say that we're not experts and we're wrong.
Well, clearly.
And the answer is,
if they've made it this far in the podcast, that's not a secret to them.
The answer is, I don't care. And I think that anybody with a brain will at least find the foundation of what I'm saying to be true.
Yeah, I would agree. And then the principles of storytelling, where you can take, going back to the story of your senior year, taking the story of that season and making that digestible for people to understand. I think one thing with wrestling is it's a much smaller, like the wrestling world is like a tuned down version of the real world.
Yeah.
Not necessarily tuned down, just like scaled down, right? So if like a lot of people in the wrestling world, like people from all over the place, right? Yeah. If you can understand business and networks in the wrestling world, you can understand business and networks in the real world. Yeah. It's just kind of like a smaller market, but the principles are the same. So one thing that I notice is like anytime there's a really good piece of media that comes out about somebody in the wrestling world, when there hasn't been much media about them before, everyone just like goes, that's who this is.
Yes,
like, Kevin Gadsden likes ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much he really likes ice cream. It's just the fact that everybody like gravitated towards that one interview where he's like, I'm going to go get some ice cream. He's like, oh, that must be who that guy is.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And I guess it's a sport where there's a small amount of guys that are in the wrestling media 24/7. And then there's, like you said, there's a small amount of guys where like we haven't seen much of this guy, and so as soon as you get a little something, you kind of grab onto that and like that's who they are. But I don't know, I am not familiar with kind of other sports, but I would imagine there's a lot of sports that are very similar to wrestling in that way.
I think they all are. I think it's just tuned up.
It's all whenever you're in the bubble of your sport,
right,
then it's like stuff's bouncing off the walls, and so you hear more about it, right? And obviously, if you're on Twitter and stuff or any of those social media apps, the algorithm is going to feed you stuff from stuff that you talk about every day, like wrestling. Right. So, it's really interesting.
MMA media is kind of like that too, where it's like okay, we've like one thing's happened and we've kind of regurgitated it 7 times, and then you've got different media platforms that all have the same source of the same story or the same clip that they've seen, and they all ask you pretty much the same question about it. I think fighters get really pissed off about that.
I get upset about this sometimes whenever I'm in interviews. Like, I've answered this question many times. Please go back to my other. No, I'm just kidding. But it's like it is interesting, and like I'm a person that I've interest in like a lot of things, and most of them lie completely outside the realm of sports. And so I pay attention to wrestling generally because kind of I have to, and I know people in it, and so that's that. But like, there's a lot of stuff about wrestling I don't follow, and then people will come to me and they'll be like, well, did you hear about what happened in the NFL or blah blah blah, like some big sports, NFL, football, basketball, anything, and I'll just be like, I have no idea who that person is. I've never heard of them in my life. And people like look at me with shock on their faces, like, what do you mean you've never heard of this person? I was like, I don't know, I don't care. I do care, like, it's fun to watch football, I understand. I just like I don't pay attention to it as much. Yeah,
you spend your time in other places, and something great I heard Coach Kale say, like I think it was last year. It's like, you have your whole life to be a fan. Don't be a fan when you're competing.
Yeah, we've heard that a couple. Cody's always told us not to be fans.
Cody,
so, yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with being a fan of certain things. I'm a fan of certain things. What am I a fan of? What do I know really well? I don't know if I'm going to have to think more on this. We'll get back to you on things that I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of like certain video games and stuff. Like, I watch people on YouTube and stuff play video games, and I think it's really cool. I'm not a Fortnite guy. I don't like Fortnite very much. I used to play it back in the day, whenever it was less building. But now it's like, whenever you play Fortnite, as soon as you see somebody, they see you. Now there's a 5-star hotel right in front of you all of a sudden. So I don't like Fortnite. But like, there's other people that play games, and I think that's cool. And like, I don't know them, but like, I don't really watch. I don't watch football that closely. So, and I don't bet or like do fantasy or anything like that. So it's just my interests are elsewhere. So
have you become more of an MMA fan? Because I know that
I have.
Yeah, you like coaching. Mm-hmm. You've been down to American Top Team to coach wrestling specifically, right? Mm-hmm. You talked a little bit about that before. Talk more about that, because that's interesting to me, because I think you have a great perspective on not only wrestling, but like you said, the top and bottom folk style is like, that's MMA. You need that. Yeah. Right? You're grabbing a wrist and you're landing
more
punches.
So than freestyle.
Way
bottom.
More.
Yeah.
Way more.
It's really interesting. It's obviously with MMA, you're adding in all different kinds of disciplines. Mm-hmm. But I think, one thing I noticed, and I think one thing a lot of people agree on, is like wrestling like wrestling and then I guess boxing are like foundations, right? And then obviously there's Muay Thai and stuff like that, and you know, you can mix in all you can, but speaking to what I know, like once you get and you start grappling with someone, wrestling is like the foundation, and jiu-jitsu obviously is important, and you know, you want to learn how to choke people out and tap people out, but body control and that kind of stuff is so important. And if whenever you are working with someone that hasn't wrestled before, or maybe they have wrestled as part of their MMA, but they didn't wrestle whenever they were a kid, there's so much like feel and nuance and like, how do I, you know, balance my weight on another person, you know, while I'm, you know, wrestling them, that is just not there. And it's hard to teach, but you can teach certain techniques, I guess. But it's really interesting. I've become more of a fan just because, you know, now that I've learned more about it, I'm more interested in it, and so I kind of watch and look for certain things, I guess. But yeah, it's an interesting sport. I can see why it's really, really popular, obviously.
Yeah, and you know, something you said like that jiu-jitsu is great. I think wrestling gives you great positional jiu-jitsu. Like if you come in with a great wrestling base, like you understand positional jiu-jitsu, and obviously the goals of what the guy on bottom's doing is different, but in MMA it comes back to being more similar. Like in jiu-jitsu, it's like, okay, he wants to be on his back, he doesn't want you on his back.
Yes. But
in MMA they're fighting to get up, which isn't really as prevalent in jiu-jitsu, right? So they're fighting to get back up. That's perfect for folk style riding. And I say this a lot, actually. Like, if you come from freestyle, like you are a great freestyle wrestler, but you never did folk style, there's a little bit of a disconnect on that, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, Yoel Romero, for instance, like I know he's a great wrestler, but he is not a great folk style wrestler in the sense of like holding people down. Now, obviously, he could probably hold me down, right? I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying like there's a difference between him and somebody who's like, I wrestled 4 years in college and I was really, really great at that aspect.
Yeah.
Like our friend Bell, for instance.
Well, one of the most tiring things that you can do in wrestling, and I think in sports, is against someone who is good at riding, is try to get out. I mean, It is rough. And that's why, you know, one of the goals for me in college was like, I'm going to try to get out in 30 seconds. Because if you're not getting out in 30 seconds, there's a chance you're not getting out in 2 minutes. And that is like one of the most tiring things like there is in the sport.
You're a different wrestler in the third period.
You're a different wrestler in the third period, you get ridden out. And so I think that's one reason why riding is so important. Even in high school where there is no riding time, you know, it can really wear you out. And top can wear you out too if you don't know what to do. And I think that's something that for MMA guys specifically is in every position, if you have a place where you know where to go and you kind of have like at least something where, like you have a path that you know to go on, like, I know I'm in this position, I want to try to grab this foot, whatever. If you have a spot where you know where to go, then that is going to reserve a lot of energy versus if you get in a situation and you're like, I have no idea what to do here, that's when you start to get tired because then your muscles are doing things that you don't know what they're doing, you're not in control of them, and you're flailing, and then that's when you get tired. And that's whenever people get tired in wrestling too, is when they get positions that they're not used to. So.
Yeah, one thing, you know, I noticed from your instructional was like you were very specific on where you're putting your weight, where you're driving his weight, right? And I'm like, this is stuff that adds up for the end of the round where you're sitting there and it's like, man, he's been in this position putting all of his weight on a certain part of my lower back for the entire period. Yeah. Like now I'm exhausted, right? So in your instructional, when you're being specific with these different things, where did you learn that? You said it wasn't as refined when you got to college.
Well, the basic technique is from Coach Kale, and I think most of the basic technique that everyone gets on our team is from Coach Kale. And then Coach Cody also, you know, a lot of the basic technique. And then kind of, you know, once I get that down, then it's like, all right, we're going to add something else now. And so we kind of start adding little bits here and there, you know, as I get it going. And then obviously whenever I'm wrestling and I'm feeling things, I can, you know, figure out what works for me and what doesn't work for me, you know, stuff that I'm good at that, you know, only I can kind of tell. And so you kind of have this formula of you're adding in ingredients from several different coaches, and then you're kind of figuring out what works for yourself and adding in your own ingredients, and then that's kind of where you get the final product. So
I like it. you want to do another instructional, do you know what it's going to be on?
What do the fans want? I'm just kidding. I think bottom is a good instructional. I think a lot of people put out, neutral stuff. We have really good neutral wrestling, and I'll definitely want to put out something for that. But I think one thing that a lot of people don't put out is like bottom technique. So I think that's a good spot.
Get out in 30 seconds or less.
Get out in 30 seconds or less. Maybe we'll do some switches, stand-ups. No one knows how to do a stand. I'm just kidding. But we can work on it. So there's a lot of like little bottom technique that, once again, nuances that people maybe haven't heard or haven't been taught that I think could be, really beneficial. So
awesome. Hey, this has been great.
Sweet.
Appreciate you coming in.
I'm in.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, nickley_PSU, Twitter, nickley141, I think. I don't know my Twitter handle, but you can find the links all in my bio on Instagram. You can also purchase some high-quality apparel at my website, wakia.store. That's WAKINYAN.store. Links also in my bio, so check me out.
Yeah, be cool if they bought Scrap Life instead.
No. Just kidding. Well, I one of the things, and I'll add this, you can put this in wherever you want, we're not wrestling apparel. Like, it's fitness apparel. Mm-hmm. I want everyone, whether you're, overweight, out of shape, or in the best shape of your life, to be able to have stuff that fits them well, that they can use to, get to where they want to be in life. So that's what Waukee is about.
I like it.
Not just wrestling.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in, man.
I'm in.